You guys want to make sure that you're ready to go for this winter time for raising chickens? Then I'm going to give you guys my 8 best tips to make sure that you survive the winter raising chickens. My name's Tom from Acres of Adventure. We're going to go right into it. Let's get into tip number 1. Tip number 1 to make sure your chickens are nice and warm this winter is making sure you get a good plastic wrap covering for the chicken run. You're going to want to go with a clear plastic covering. We have done this many different years now for all of our sets of chickens that we have in different flocks. We have, like you see behind me, a hoop coop that we use for the chickens, and they get just one big plastic that goes over the whole entire thing. We also have done this for runs for our chickens. The clear plastic wrap allows the sun to go through, which allows like a greenhouse effect, which is actually going to warm it up a little bit, which will help keep them a few degrees warmer than what it actually is outside, allowing them to be able to be a little more comfy, especially being draft free, which is one of the most important things that you can do for your chickens, is that as long as they don't get really cold and wet and then a lot of big wind hitting them, your chickens should be really safe this winter time. And this is what you're going to want to use. When you go to the store to look for these, they could be in the tarp area, usually at your farm stores or your home improvement store. And you want to make sure you get the thickest one if you want the most protection, which would be 6 mil. And if not, 4 mil usually works pretty well too. But this has made a big difference for our chickens and allowing them to be able to just still roam a little bit more when there is snow here in Michigan covering the ground and they don't want to go out and free range. Step number 2 for making sure your chickens are prepared this winter and making sure that you're prepared to take care of them is making sure that you get some straw and fill up their chicken run with some straw. Allow this to be a little extra insulation for their chicken run, allowing them to be warm, allowing them to get a spot where they can kind of just nuzzle in a little bit extra. Straw has been something for us that we've noticed that the chickens really do enjoy. Every time we put this in here, you don't even have to spread it yourselves. You can kind of just open up a bale of straw like this and the chickens will scratch around and they'll play around in it, which will help them move around and stay warm. And also, once this is all stretched out and put out in the chicken run, it allows them just to stay a little extra warm. And especially if you put the plastic wrap on the chicken run and listen to tip number 1, then tip number 2 is going to be that extra boost to allow your chickens to stay nice and warm. This has been something that we've done for all of our chicken coops and chicken runs. So remember this one, straw inside your chicken runs seems to be a pretty good idea. Step number 3 to help your chickens during the winter time is making sure they have enough food. This is the one time that you might want to overfeed your chickens. It's because the more content that they have in their bodies, fat, protein wise, they are going to stay heated up, especially the later you feed them if you want to help them before they go to bed. That is another tip that people like to do. What we like to do with the feed is usually switch to a meat bird feed because it's a higher protein content, which allows for these chickens to kind of just bulk up a little bit more, save that heat. Chickens already have a very hot internal temperature to their bodies. They survive winters just fine. So you guys want to make sure that you don't ever have to overdo it, but it is something that you can help by getting their body a little bit more warm by making sure their bellies stay nice and full, just like we would for us. Another thing you can do is kind of like warm up some rice, warm up some oatmeal, maybe do some beans or noodles right when they're still nice and warm, and then bring those out to your chickens on like a really cold day. Sometimes we like to do that for the chickens. But other than that, just enough feed, and if you can up the protein content, that is definitely a tip that's going to help your chickens stay nice and warm in the cold temperatures. Tip number 4 for your chickens is daily fresh water. I know I just got done talking about food and making sure that you have enough food for your chickens during the winter time. It's definitely important to build up their protein and the fat content to make sure that they warm as much as they can. Water is just as important for a chicken, and it helps their body regulate the way that it needs to for the winter time. So you don't want to be dehydrating your chickens even when it's cold out. A lot of people like to forget this kind of step because they think that water is not as important than it is during hot temperatures. But you want to make sure that you are coming out and that your chickens always have access to fresh water. And that leads me right into number 5, which has to do with the fresh water, where we use these black rubber bowls for the winter time. The reason I bring this up is that these bowls are going to give you the easiest access during the winter time if you do not use electricity out to your coop. If you use any of the plastic waterers that you have to twist and undo, if you use any other bowls that are really hard to step on, all of them eventually are going to either crack or they're going to freeze up, and it's going to be so hard to get the ice out of that you are going to be struggling all winter. I have done it, I have dealt with it, and I don't want you guys to. So switching to these black rubber bowls has made all the difference. It has made it so easy for us just to flip over, step on it really hard so that the ice falls right out of the bowl, so that we can replace it with fresh water, and it takes no time. Where all the other waterers that you're going to use during the winter time that don't involve electricity are definitely going to be a lot harder for you. Other options, if you don't use this and you do use electricity, I've seen people use crock pots and they put it on the warm setting, which allows you to always have water still available for your chickens. Going back to tip number 4, making sure water is always available, so that's very important. Or just use any other heated bowl if you have that access. If not, switch to these black rubber bowls, you won't regret it. To round out all these winter tips, the last few of them are all gonna involve your chicken coop and what you can do in order to make sure your chicken coop is full prepared and winter proof and ready to go for your chickens. So starting with number 6, what we're gonna talk about is your roost inside your chicken coop. So allowing your roost to be higher up off the ground, since heat rises, it is important for your chickens not to be as low to the ground as possible. So any way you can elevate your roost in your chicken coops, it is a great idea during the winter time because it is going to help the heat rise in the coop a little bit, which I'm going to explain how you can do. But it's also going to make sure your chickens are able to stay warm, which then leads us to kind of like a part of number 6 in roosting is the closer your chickens are together, the more warmth you're going to get. So whether that means losing a little bit of roost compared to what you had before, or getting more chickens. There's your excuse to get more chickens right there. Now let's go into number 7. Going into number 7, you want to make sure your coop has ventilation throughout it. No, you do not want your coop to have these big drafts that are going to be hitting your chickens. But also, you don't want it compact, no airflow at all, because airflow actually does help chickens, especially during the winter time. You want to make sure that there is windows for your coops. Make sure that you have them on both sides. You want to make sure that you see that little opening right there. That is our automatic chicken coop door. That door is always open, obviously, while they're moving in and out. This big door is definitely not open. This is one that we would close for them. But that allows the ventilation in the coop to be pretty well done for the winter time. Ours could actually probably even use an extra window, but that's all we got for right now. But this does at least fit the mold for what we need, which is better ventilation for the coops. Now let's talk about number 8, which is the deep litter method. So your bedding that you use for your coop, whether you use straw, whether you use wood chips, I'm gonna give you the excuse to not necessarily clean it this winter time. For the winter here in Michigan, we like to use a thing called the deep litter method, which is a way to try to increase a little bit of heat inside your coop, but making sure that you do it safely. So the deep litter method is basically, instead of taking all the bedding out of your coop when you go to clean it, you are going to stir up what is in there at the moment, and then you are going to put a fresh new bedding on top of that. And what that does is the heat will start to build up inside underneath the fresh bedding, and that heat will then rise. So if you have your roost up higher, like we said in step number 6, this will allow your chickens to be warmer during the winter time. And it's gonna be a little less work for you during the winter time because less cleaning of the coop. And this has been something that we've done the last 2 winters now. We're gonna be doing it again here this 3rd winter. And if it's an idea that you need to, or if you have any extra questions about it, comment them below, but it's worked out really well for us. We've never had a problem with it. It does make for a big cleanup during springtime, but worry about that in the springtime, and instead let's keep your chickens warm without electricity. And that is one of the best ways that you can do that. As you can see, when I talked about taking care of all these chickens that you see right here and more chickens that we have over there, I didn't ever mention the words heat lamp. If you want to use it, use it. I'm not going to tell you necessarily not to. There is dangers to a heat lamp, and this is just me going to put this out there for anyone who does use a heat lamp for their coops. 1, it's a fire risk. 2, if it stops working by any means, your chickens are adjusted to that hotter temperature, and they will go into a shock because it'll be such a drastic difference between the heat lamp temperature down to what the temperature could be outside. And that could actually end up being fatal for your chickens as well. So no, I don't think a heat lamp is one of my things that I put on this. We like to try to do everything electricity free here if we can. And it seems to have been working out really well for us this winter time. So if you have a lot of these guys like we do this winter, I hope this video helped you take care of them. If you have any extra things that I forgot, comment them below. Any extra questions, I'd be happy to answer them. My name's Tom from Acres of Adventure. Have a great day and a better tomorrow, and God bless you guys.